Just a very quick warning here that this video will contain spoilers for between about 1 and 2% of the total cards in this game. Anything that I think is a more substantial spoiler will be flagged as such. Vantage is the latest from Stonemaier Games, the publisher that you might know for the phenomenally successful bird-type game Wingspan, or absolutely dominant area control game Scythe. Both games that, much like the rest of their catalogue, leverage an absolutely lavish production to get quite complex systems and ideas into the hands of basically anybody. And so Vantage is in a risky spot then. No delicious eggs, no cardboard bird feeders, no industrial machinery in this one. Instead, we've got literally 1,000 cards packed into this box. Cards that will, together, promise a truly open-world board game experience, an adventure of limitless possibilities. And this world is so phenomenally vast that the designer himself has said, and I quote, "If there is something you're hoping to find in this game, there is a 99.99% chance that it's in there somewhere already." And this promise has caught the attention of a whole bunch of people, rocketing this game into the top 50 thematic games of all time within just a few months of its release. It's higher than Dune, Earthborn Rangers, Oath, Galaxy Trucker, The King's Dilemma, and Cosmic Encounter. Suffice it to say that people really like Vantage. But do we think that it meets all of that hype? Here's how it works. Between 1 and 6 players will crash land on an alien planet, learning to survive, thrive, and eventually complete some kind of goal. Attain great wealth, collect a menagerie of animals, pursue personal growth, or fish for the Kraken.
Cracking fish from it.
Now here's the thing. Each player's pod has crash landed at a completely different location on this planet, meaning that communication is relegated to radio chatter alone. Hence, in Vantage, only you get to see the location your character is currently at, placing it in this plastic stand so it remains for your eyes only. It's your Vantage. And on each of these cards, you have multiple possible actions that you can take. Do I want to evade, or yield, or persuade, or assist, or rob, or duel? Each and every one of these takes you to a different entry in a different storybook, and you'll read the results of your decision, perhaps receiving a new item, or companion, or skill for the trouble. And after you've done an action, you can wander on to another card, taking a different action at that location, and so on and so forth, bumbling from card to card, experiencing an adventure. And you see, that's not a choice. Vantage restricts its players to take just one action at each location. It wants you to keep moving forward, to keep experiencing as much of this world as you possibly can. And the challenge here is presented by these dice. Every time you attempt anything in Vantage, the relevant entry in the storybook will tell you how many of these dice to roll, a number that you can chunk down by spending skill tokens of the relevant challenge colour. You roll the dice, and then you suffer damage to your health and morale and time equal to the results. But there's a second layer of mitigation on offer, where you can use the slots on your character or equipment to absorb problems as well, often tied to the kind of challenge that you're doing. This pike makes me better at chasing and intimidating and hunting, and this juice barrel juices up my conversations. In any case, if one of these little lucky charms hits the bottom of your mission board, then you lose. Kind of. We'll come back to that later. But if you don't lose, then the next player takes their turn, and you keep going around the table, poking around this planet, exploring stuff, doing challenges, hopefully having a good time. Okay, so that is a super dry approximation of the rules for Vantage, but I wanted to get it out of the way, because honestly, the game wants to get it out of the way too. The very first page of Vantage's rulebook hits you with the universal rule of thematic fun, basically giving players free rein to interpret Vantage's rule set however they like at whatever time that they fancy. And I kind of respect that. This isn't a game that's interested in complex interlocking systems or fine moves. It's a vibe, it's a narrative, and it wants you to treat it like one. It's interested in the stories that are going to come out of your table. Stories that can vary wildly depending on exactly where within these hundreds of cards you might end up. In one game, you're rambling across endless deserts, nattering with local creatures and uncovering crystals buried in the ground. And in the next, you're picking flowers in verdant grasslands, eventually setting up a business that trades junk with passers-by. And my very first game of Vantage demonstrated this absolutely perfectly. We were constantly being bombarded with discovery after discovery after discovery, gleefully ripping cards from this gargantuan library like kids in a CCG shop. Oh look, I've got a pet. I've got two. Check out my shovel, or my assistant, or my cool rock collection. Each player round the table was having a different adventure, pulling on different narrative threads, excited to find the next little piece of their story. And each one of these little location cards is just saturated with promise. In one card, you might see a little fella, the little fella's house, a lake, a creature, and some far-off landmark to potter towards, all begging for just a little bit more exploration. And this is just such an impressive feat. The fact that every single one of these locations has multiple options that lead to multiple entries across multiple books, oftentimes giving you physical cards that sit in front of you rather than just stat bonuses or little numbers. And these cards themselves might have options to take, entries to read, items to further obtain. You pull on one little bit of string and you find a dozen others clinging to it. And in these first few games, this is where I really got it. There's a swirling maelstrom of hype around this game, and it was being delivered directly to my table. I was in love with the way that this game lets you loose in its world, free to pull on whatever narrative thread that you fancy. And already this breadth is absolute madness. But then you see a little glimmer of something else stumble into view. Perhaps you spot a distinctive number on a piece of scenery, or relay a landmark to another player that sounds awfully familiar. Perhaps you spot one of the symbols of the skills on an outcropping of rock, or a door that doesn't just magically open for you, or you nab an item that lets you into a whole different layer of the world. And this is where my excitement for Vantage started to reach a fever pitch. This is a narrative game, but it's not a campaign game. It starts you off in a random location as a random character with random equipment. But surely, by pulling on enough of these little signs in the environment, you might start to uncover something that is a little bigger. Okay, sorry that it's taken me quite so long to get to this point, but Vantage might be one of the most disappointing games that I've yet covered for Shut Up and Sit Down. Initially so replete with promise and excitement and adventure, but then every play past the first had delivered gradually less and less and less until I'm left with a box that I have absolutely no desire to return to. Now, I don't really like to make negative reviews. I'd rather use the space on the channel to heap praise onto something that we find really exciting and really engaging. But Vantage has this roiling sea of hype around it, and you might, like me, find yourself swept up in the eddies of that excitement, only to find yourself a little bit cold and soggy after just a few games. Now, right off the bat, Vantage's very core system of having you only able to look at the card that is directly in front of you and create your own personal grid of items and companions, it immediately isolates its players, giving you this distinct feeling that you're all on separate choose-your-own-adventure stories. And you are. You're very much on your own journey, relaying what happens to you and what you can see to the rest of the people round the table. Nothing ever happens to the group as a whole. The interaction that does exist is the opportunity to occasionally socket dice on other people's cards, an interaction that's never really a decision, but an inevitability. Has anyone else got a little slot for a star? Oh, you do. Thanks. These are siloed adventures that just share a few dice spots between them. Now, at 2 players, this is kind of fine. You're pretty engaged with what the other person is doing, and 1 in every 2 turns is yours to take. But at 3, 4, 5, and 6 players, the downtime becomes absolutely bogging. And I'm not alone in thinking this. I have never seen a more damning player count recommendation on BoardGameGeek. At any of the higher player counts, this game is an absolute chore to sit through, with each individual narrative progressing at a snail's pace. It's like watching 6 different movies at once, one scene at a time. And within those movies, there's not really any stakes. Vantage's fail-forward design philosophy has you succeed in basically everything you attempt, making it feel like a role-playing game where the dice always hit nat 20s, sucking away all of the narrative tension that surviving on an alien planet might entail, and making the game feel almost obsequious in its desire to please the player. Now I know what you're thinking. Tom, there is a breadth to failure in Vantage. These dice will cost you those resources. Taking on an ambitious challenge will push you closer to losing the whole game. And well, yes, this is true, but it's a flimsy narrative system. Because failure in Vantage doesn't unfold in ways that are particular to what you're doing, it just happens when you run out of a certain resource. I was once talking to one of my companions and I lost the game because I ran out of health. This game has thousands upon thousands of entries for what happens when your characters win, but shrugs its shoulders whenever failure draws near. But don't worry, because Vantage has a contingency for if you fail when you don't think you should fail. If you lose the game, you didn't. Just top up your resources and keep on going. As a system, this mostly acts as a crutch for those moments in which you don't think you should fail as a table, where it doesn't make narrative sense for you to lose the game, like the aforementioned chat death. And it makes sense for this rule to be here for these moments, but only because it's papering over the cracks in what is such a thin system to use in such a wide sandbox. On paper, I kind of like it, right? The idea that like you don't have an unsatisfying ending, but it means that all endings are good endings. In all the games, I think I've played this like 12 times, and every time I've played it, we've either ended the game because we got bored or because we finished a goal because we wanted to like escape the game. Never did we feel like there was a moment in which we failed a task and it made sense for us to lose the game there. Good stories happen when you fail along the way. They don't like build to one big failure point and then they just end. They have little pockets. This is better than the script. I'll keep this in. Keep this in. Failure's important. Yeah. What this lack of any real stakes creates is just a tremendously flat narrative arc. And that made this review really tricky to write, because I don't remember the stories of any of our games. Not really. I met a rock person, and what happened? I met them. I dug up a treasure chest, and what was inside? Can't remember. Was I searching for it? No, not really. I just saw it, and I interacted with it, and then I walked on to the next place where I succeeded at my next thing. And this vignetted, instanced, siloed storytelling might be fine if the world design and writing of Vantage was really strong. But this might be my biggest problem with this game. I find Vantage's world almost impressively dull. I keep coming back to the designer's claim about Vantage, that if there's something you're hoping to find in this game, there's a 99.99% chance that it's in there somewhere already. It's a bold statement, but one that I kind of believe. There is a huge amount of stuff in this game, but that's what it is. It's stuff. It's every possible archetype or story that one could possibly think of smushed into one world, and each individual part of that world is as flat as a pancake. There's pirates, there's robots, there's elementals, there's mercenaries, there's boats, there's jetpacks, there's spaceships, there's basically anything you could possibly want there to be. And the result is that Vantage as a world does not have its own identity. It has a surface level representation of basically every identity. Every pet or companion or item impresses you with its existence alone. It's amazing that there's this many cards with unique artwork. It's amazing that all these things are represented somewhere. But they fade into the background almost immediately because their gameplay and narrative implication is just a place to store dice. Listen, I'm just disappointed because I flirted with every single character in Vantage and they all reacted in exactly the same way. Wow, they say. You must really mean that. My top slot no longer costs you anything. Now, there are exceptions to this rule. Sometimes you'll find a sort of coherent or cogent set of items and equipment and companions that gives you a sort of character archetype. You find a spear, you find a skill that makes you really good at spearing, and it's time to go barbarian style. But Vantage's giant soup of stuff means that often it's just one person with a defined character, and 2 or 3 more players sat around the table that have a completely random assortment of stuff. A stick, some night vision goggles, and a small house. Have fun. And all of this is most clearly exemplified in Vantage's tertiary systems. There are whole sets of cards that you get access to after a bit of poking and prodding around this world, a little bit of extra discovery. There's chunks of cards that are a bit different to the rest. There's entries in these books that break the mold a little bit. There's pockets of space that feel distinctly side questy. But they still have the feeling of being included for that initial wow of discovery that doesn't really survive contact with air. Skip to this timestamp if you want to avoid any kind of spoilers at all here. Take, for example, the message boards. There are these orbs and electrical towers that you can find dotted around Vantage's world, and interacting with them takes you to a website where you can leave messages for other players. It's a system that has been plucked straight from the Souls series and deployed here with all the elegance of an elephant on a spiral staircase. It lacks any of the place, any of the humour, any of the necessity of the soapstone messaging in the Souls games, reduced down just to direction, action, and location. There's no personality in these messages, and nor do they lead to anything particularly interesting. I adore this system in the Souls games, and so I really wanted to engage with it here. So every single time I found an orb, I made sure to follow one or two of the instructions. And what did I get from it? I found a rat and a herb. It's just here because it's cool that it's here. It's just here so that you can have a wow moment, so that there's a system to discover. But past that, it's all just smoke. It's half-drawn and incongruous with the world that it exists in. If there's something that you can think of, there's a 99.99% chance that it's somewhere in there. All of this might just be a bit of a taste consideration, because plenty of people out there seem really enchanted by this world. They love this mad tangle of things, the breadth of stuff that is on offer. But it's really just not for me at all. I get drawn into a world by its particulars, by its details, by its sense of place. And Vantage's floatiness, both in its challenges and in its world design, it leaves me feeling quite cold. It's not for me. To me, Vantage feels like the all-you-can-eat buffet of adventure games. Every possible cuisine is represented somewhere, but its presence is far more important than its quality. Strike forth and explore a boundless library of tropes and references to more deliberate pieces of media. This might be your bag, and if it is, then go for it. In reading a lot of other people's glowing reviews for this game, it seems like many folks really enjoy this floatiness, the stream of success, and the breadth of stuff on offer, filling in those narrative gaps by themselves. But for us, we'd rather have a more authored experience. We don't want to go anywhere and do anything if we're only meant to be impressed by the fact that it's possible to do it.
The Sentient reciprocates with passion, assuring you that they would do anything to make the world a safer place for you. From now on, do not spend boost to place challenge dice on the slot at the upper left of this Sentient. The Sentient reciprocates with passion, taking you into their arms and soaring into the air. From now on, do not spend boost to place challenge dice on the slot at the upper left of this Sentient. The Sentient reciprocates with passion, enlisting you to be their partner. From now on, do not spend boost to place challenge dice on the slot at the upper left of this Sentient. The Sentient reciprocates with passion, eagerly expressing their desire to spend time with you. From now on, do not spend boost to place challenge dice on the slot at the upper left of this Sentient. The Sentient reciprocates with passion, claiming that their love for you is enduring against all waves. From now on, do not spend boost to place challenge dice on the slot at the upper left.